this is Liz from People I Think Are Cool, a bi-weekly podcast where I interview my favorite creatives from across the globe. If you're looking for a dose of creative inspiration, then go to peopleithinkarecool.com or subscribe to People I Think Are Cool on iTunes and Stitcher.
You like film, from cult to classic, from blockbuster to B-movies. And there just isn't that one place with all the fan fervor and passion that's covering the kind of mad, diverse brilliance that you love.
Well, that's where you're wrong.
AfterMovieDiner.com is that fan-built movie nirvana just for you, featuring the sweet, sweet writings of the wife dork herself. AfterMovieDiner.com. Go there. Be the best you can be.
Official podcast of the Alamo Drafthouse, Winchester.
Welcome to another edition of the REVIEWcast podcast. Joining us is Brian Young, the Turtle Dork.
Hi, folks.
And also joining us is Lisa Gullickson, wife dork.
Hello.
And Brad Gullickson, mouth dork.
Hello.
And I'm your host, Darren Smith, the dork with no name. That's not true. I am the disco dork. And welcome to another edition of the REVIEWcast podcast. This is our Sundance Film Festival review.
Yeah.
All right.
Something
welcome back.
I thought we would never, ever do or say. The ItMod Sundance REVIEWcast.
We have arrived.
That's crazy.
It is. So you two, wife dork and mouth dork, have had a wonderful opportunity to go out to the Sundance Film Festival.
Yeah. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah.
We've talked about this on the podcast before, but Lisa and I submitted ourselves as In the Mouth of Dorkness to the Sundance Film Festival.
On a whim, we put in our letter some of the super cool interviews we've gotten to do, the fact that we're affiliated with the Alamo Drafthouse Winchester, how we're affiliated with Film School Rejects. We actually have all kinds of super cool qualifications under our belt that we downplay because we are humble motherfuckers.
Right. And so we submitted, and Sundance said, yes, welcome, join us as a working press member.
Nice.
So just like all of Sundance and all of everything, press credentials are tiered. So working press, we didn't know at the time but it turned out to not be an issue, is the bottom tier of press credential. So we were essentially the plebes.
Yeah, it goes working press, general press, and then
Express
press, which is like Rotten Tomatoes.
where you get to just roll into whatever theater you want whenever you want before anybody.
Right. And the way working press worked is for the P&I screenings, general press gets let in 30 minutes before a screening, and the working press gets let in 5 minutes before a screening. So
if there's any room.
If there's any room. So if it's a super popular movie like that Neverland Michael Jackson doc, all of general press showed up. There was one press screening for it. They all filled up that theater, and we didn't even bother to go because we just knew we weren't going to be able to get in.
Right.
We did also have access to the e-waitlist. So what e-waitlist is like it's part of the app, the Sundance app, and you don't have a pass to you don't get any free passes, but if you get onto the waitlist list and there's room, you can be let in along with other badge holders, but they have to, if they're on the e-wait list, they have to pay $20. We don't have to pay that $20 to see a film waitlisted.
And so when we learned about all these rules, we were a little panicked. Like that first day at Sundance, we were like, well, it's possible we won't get into any movies.
Yeah.
And we're here to tell you that we got into every
movie. There were a couple of situations where we waitlisted for something. And, I tried to see Late Night. I waitlisted for Late Night, but I was like number 500 something on the wait. So I'm like, there's no way I'm getting into that theater. So I'm just going to let go of that waitlist ticket. Or, So things like that.
Yeah.
The Farewell is another one where we had waitlisted. But there's only a certain window where if you're waitlisted, you can get into the waitlist line. That's a half an hour before the movie. And we got stuck in traffic. So.
Yeah, the way the waitlist works is 2 hours before the film, you can enter the waitlist. And then you have till
Via the
30
app.
minutes to get into the waitlist before showtime. But then after that 30 minutes, you have to go to the back of the line no matter what your number is.
Damn.
So there was a couple times that we didn't make it in time because of traffic. But all that being said, as long as you want to go and watch movies, let's say you don't go into late night and you can't get into the Farewell, then you go watch the Toni Morrison doc or something else.
We always, for every slot we tried to see a movie, we did see a movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we ended up seeing over 40 films at Sundance Film Festival. We had a total blast.
So I know like Sundance is really for filmmakers to bring their films so they can sell their films to studios and stuff like that. And the press is there so they can kind of promote those films to their outlets. So is it like fantastic? Is it only press that goes to see these movies, or can like general people go and watch movies at this?
There's like a lot of options that you could do. You could buy badges, right? You could spend a ton of money, buy a Sundance badge.
The more money you spend, the more passes you get.
The more access you have.
And once you're out of passes, you can still pay $20, and it's like the standby line at Fantastic
But you
Fest.
could not get any passes and then just do the entire experience via waitlist and still see movies.
Okay.
So
A lot of locals did that.
right,
okay,
and there's lots of public screenings. The majority of it are public screenings.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's where the world premieres are. And if you want to see the cast show up to the world premieres. And and the public screenings. They don't show up to the P&I screenings. The P&I screening is in the Holiday Theater and the Park Avenue Theater, and only press people go to those theaters in certain windows. And a theater manager just shows up. If you haven't even read about the film, they don't tell you anything. They just say, "Hi, welcome to the Holiday. The movie is this. It's directed by this. The runtime is this. Enjoy."
Oh.
Whereas if you go to a public screening, a programmer comes out, like at Fantastic Fest, and says, "We're really excited about this. Jennifer Kent is here. This film is going to be a really rough watch." They give you context.
Okay.
So sometimes, like, I really ended up enjoying the P&I screenings because I actually didn't do a lot of homework at all. I went in and I watched the majority of the films knowing nothing about them.
Okay, so like if you can't get into a P&I, you can still go like so there's press who actually go to the public screenings as well.
But if we go to the public screenings, we have to get onto the wait list.
The wait list, guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But all very easily manageable. Unlike Fantastic Fest, it's occurring throughout Park City. So there's like, I don't know, 8 theaters that you travel to, and they're not next to each other. Some are. You know, the Holiday Theater is near the Park Avenue Theater, which is near the Ray. But then if you want to go see something at the Eccles, you have to get on a bus, and it's
Yeah,
5
there's a
minutes
shuttle
away.
that goes around to
That's
all
cool.
of the theaters. And that aspect of the film festival was something we were nervous about, but actually turned out to be not that big a deal.
Totally free bus system in Park City, Utah. So that's really, really nice.
Yeah, that was nice.
And you know, again, you had to like understand what time of day it was and how long it was going to take you to get from one theater to another theater.
But we're Comic-Con trained. Like, we're always the first and second people in line. And we did not complain at all about waiting in line, unlike a lot of people who were in the
Really?
press line with us. Yeah, some people were a little bit annoyed that, you know, they had to wait
Well,
in
if
a
you're
line.
excited about a film, let's say I want to see The Report, right? I'm not going to miss The Report.
Right.
Adam Driver, yes, gotta be there. Well, the P&I screening is at this time. Well, because I know I'm going to be in the 5-minute wait list working press line, I want to make sure I'm the first one in that line.
Yeah.
So I showed up like an hour early.
We did that for the
An hour is
P&I.
nothing, too.
Yeah, it's nothing for comic book ITMOD trained people.
Right, yeah.
We did that for the P&I screening of Shockingly Wicked.
Oh, the
Or-
Ted Bundy one.
Yeah, the Ted Bundy one. I cannot get that title. In
Shockingly, no.
Yeah.
Extremely Wicked.
Shockingly
Evil.
and Vile.
Yeah. We I got into line like
2 hours.
hours before the movie. I was literally the very first person in that
Yeah.
wait list line. Brad was coming from another film. He was 5th, and they only let 7 people from our
Damn.
line in.
That was the closest call we had.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and there was still like 50 people behind us in that
And then
working
there's
press
the
line.
volunteer line, and the volunteer line go in after us.
That is the worst deal. Like the volunteers, some of them are working 46-hour weeks, and they maybe have the time and energy to see one movie a day, and they're literally the last person let into the theater. We made sure that every time we saw a volunteer person, we thanked them. We talked movies with them because they are really doing the grunt work.
So you guys had no 2012 dread?
No.
That was the thing that was going through my mind. I'm like, oh no, we're in the Groundhog's Day of that dread screening where we're going to wait in line for 7.5 hours to look at what's his face.
Carl Urban.
Yeah, through a crack in the door.
No.
Sad.
You know, we did miss out on a few films, and we'll talk about that at the end of the episode. But like Lisa said, you know, we saw a movie for every slot we wanted to see.
That's good.
Let's get into it, man.
yeah,
I'm curious to
okay.
hear. See, this is okay. So and for the listeners, if you don't follow us on Facebook, during their time there, they were doing daily recaps of the films that they saw. So you can check those out if you know of films that were there, but you don't hear us talk about them on this particular episode. But I purposely avoided listening to any recaps or whatever because I was looking forward to you all coming back, and I wanted to get firsthand. So let's get into it.
Yes.
So Lisa's picked 5 movies.
Yeah.
I've picked 5 movies.
Yeah.
And these are not necessarily my top 5 favorite films of Sundance, but they're the ones I'm the most excited about, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's how I'm gonna couch it.
I did mine are more or less my top 5 movies. This is actually my 7, 5, 3, 2, 1. The one movie I'm not talking about is Light from Light. It's a ghost story starring Jim Gaffigan as a widow. I found it super beautiful, but I don't know how to talk about it without super spoiling it. So when you see that movie come out, it's really like a low-key, beautiful ghost story. I really enjoy it.
Jim Gaffigan was the star of Sundance.
He was in 3 films.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I know. He was in
Light for Light,
Troop Zero.
and Them That Follow, the Walton Goggins movie.
That movie was also
Walton
great.
Goggins movie?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Holy fuck, dude.
he plays a snake handling preacher. He plays the same dude in every movie, but I can watch him endlessly. That was another great movie.
It's not on my list. Is it on your list?
It's not on my list.
I do recommend it, though. It's really
great.
good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
And it's not a movie I necessarily would have signed up to watch, too.
Oh, Walton Goggins, I'm there.
Wait, Walton Goggins plays a snake handling
Yeah.
preacher or Jim Gaffigan?
No,
Walton Goggins.
Oh,
Jim
shit.
Gaffigan plays...
A disciple.
a disciple and a father.
Oh, I was sold on Walton Goggins. So.
And we recognize that these movies are not coming out for a little while, so we're not going to spoil anything that you wouldn't see after the first 15, 20 minutes.
Or in a trailer.
Or in like an IMDb description.
Or like the one... Like, there's one movie in particular where the only released image of this movie gives away what the movie is about. So, Brad has given me a lot of guff about how much I'm giving away in my Sundance recaps.
I'm just saying.
He's giving me a complex.
I want people to... I don't want to be the reason people go like, oh, now I know everything about the movie. It just wouldn't be fair.
I'm not saying that I'm ever the person who does do that. Except for maybe one time Aaron accused me of it. But it was in the trailer. It was in the Green Room trailer. Aaron?
I apologize if I've given you a complex, Lisa.
All right, let's get into it. I want to know movies.
Yay.
All right, you want to start, Lisa?
So I'm going to start with an interesting little genre flick called Judy and Punch. This, Sundance this year put a real concerted effort into making room for female filmmakers, minority filmmakers. They really wanted to get a variety of voices. The writer-director of this particular film is Mira Fulks. This is an What if I did that prelude and she's not actually a female filmmaker? I hope. I'm just assuming by the name because I saw it at a P&I screening. But oh no, I didn't. I saw it. But it was at the end of the festival, and all of the filmmakers leave. So it's kind of like Fantastic Fest. If you don't see a movie on its first run around, you might not necessarily see the filmmaker and cast member. I'm guessing by the name. I'm guessing she's a female filmmaker. But it's a movie. It's starring Mia Wasikowska and Damon Harriman, who I always think of as Dewey from Justified.
Oh shit!
Yeah. He was also in a couple of Sundance flicks.
Yeah, and we kept running into him. He was always at screenings that we were going to.
Yeah, he's petite.
Yeah, he's a tiny dude.
He's a small man. The television shows him in actual size. But it's a period film, takes place in like olden times, Punch and Judy times, and Damon Harriman plays Punch. And he is considered one of the greatest puppeteers in England. He's traveling around with his wife, Judy, Mia Wasikowska, and they put together this really beautiful, intricate puppeteer show with marionettes. But Judy is actually the more skilled of the puppeteers. She really is the backbone that keeps the show together, but because of the times and because Punch is a little bit more of a showman, he gets all of the credit, and he likes it that way. But because these puppeteer shows isn't necessarily playing to the most sophisticated theater goer, Punch starts upping the violence in the puppet show to get more reaction out of the crowd. And so Judy starts going like, don't you think that it's getting too punchy? There's too much. Don't you think it's getting kind of violent? And he's like, well, it's what the people want. And then this movie is about how sometimes life imitates art, imitates life. So this movie was one that got some interesting, like, it's one of those where it evokes a reaction out of you, and then you question your goodness as a person for reacting that way. But I found it, this is my favorite movie I've seen Mia Wasikowska in for a while. I think I loved her in Crimson Peak, but since then...
Piercing. I like her in Piercing.
I like her in Piercing, too. But I think that Judy is a really interesting character. It's visually stunning and a really interesting, fun film.
It's fun?
Yeah, it's fun. It's dark.
I feel like it could go, yeah.
It's a dark comedy. And maybe less comedy and more dark.
I really wish I had seen it, especially after Lisa watched it. I had heard some pretty mixed things on it from the few folks I had talked to about it. But you know, when you see Mia Wasikowska, immediately I'm curious because she doesn't tend to pick garbage movies. Right. She's always watchable.
Yeah.
All right.
So the first film I want to highlight is a movie that got no love out of Sundance. I felt like no one was talking about this in their best of lists. And honestly, I found it truly moving. And it's going to be on Netflix on March 1st. So you'll be able to see this right around the corner. It's the directorial debut of Chiwetel Ejiofor. And it's an adaptation of the memoir, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, which is the story of William Kamkwamba, who... when I want to say he was 14, he built a windmill for his village, and this windmill allowed the town to not only have electricity but operate a pump and bring irrigation to their crops, and basically save everyone. They were suffering from a tremendous famine that was caused by two factors: one, nature, torrential downpours, and then no rain whatsoever. So the combination of, extreme rain versus extreme drought was devastating to the crops. And then there's the human factor where the people selling the grain would fluctuate the prices to such an extreme that nobody could afford them. And also grain was limited and people were starving to death. And William Kamkwamba, this teenager, he was in his school library, and he had to fight to get access to this library because his family couldn't pay the fees to go to school. But in this library, which is maybe a fifth the size of the apartment that we're currently recording this podcast in, that maybe had like 100, 200 books at most. There was a book called Using Energy, and he saw windmills on the cover of that book, and it just caught his eye. He was like, well, what is a windmill? Let me figure out what that is, and how do those work, and what can I do with wind-created power? And, this kid is a hero. He's a true lifesaver. And watching his story, one, I think, okay, obviously it's a inspirational tale, but there's lots of inspirational tales, but Ejiofor, he makes a film that studios just wouldn't put out, right? It's shot on location in Malawi, Africa. It uses the dialect, so there's it's all subtitles, although sometimes they speak in English depending on where they're located. But for the most part, it's in a foreign language. It's shot by Dick Pope, the cinematographer. It looks beautiful. It's meant for the big screen. It's a gorgeous looking movie. And it's a human drama. It's life and death, certainly, but it's really just about how these people interact as a family and as a community. And I found the experience incredibly moving. I was crying nonstop through this film. Okay. And it starts, for me, it really started with this idea that here's this kid, if he only has access to one book, he can save people.
And he has to fight for that access.
And not only does he have to fight for that access, he then has to convince people that the knowledge in that book is actually helpful, and that if you give me, access to your scrap in your junkyard, or maybe I might need pieces of your bicycle. If you give me access to this stuff, I can make a difference in this village. And it's just something that's just not at all considered realistic. Yeah. Here we are in Park City, Utah. We saw it at a public screening. We were lucky enough to work the red carpet for this event. We talked to Chiwetel Ejiofor. We talked to William Kamkwamba. And I wish I really had understood his story when I was talking to him, because I would have had a lot better questions, and I'd have a better conversation and more respect for this guy, because, like I said, he's a hero. So we saw it in this public screening. Park City is like all money. Sundance, everyone around you is like in furs, and they've got nice watches and great clothes and jewelry and the bright sunglasses. And we're watching a story of extreme poverty and denied resources. And it's such a surreal experience to be in this one environment watching this amazing story of this kid. And it made me like, I look at this apartment and I look at all the books I have, and I look at the access to the internet and what I can get from Google, and what do I do with this knowledge? Yeah. So I can't ever look at this stuff and look at these books and look at Google and take it for granted ever again. Because if this kid had access to what I had, he would have easily helped all of these humans. And I don't know. I'm rambling, but I just was profoundly moved by the film.
What I liked about the film, we're in this necessary resurgence of activism in film, and you saw that all the way throughout Sundance. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them are angry, and they're pointing to social ills, which is 100% necessary. And I feel those movies to be equally valuable and fulfilling. But it was also nice to see activism in film that was genuinely hopeful and genuinely constructive.
Yeah. And, because it's a Netflix movie and it's coming into your home on March 1st, it was interesting when you were talking to press people. Oh, I'm not going to go watch that movie because I'm going to be able to see it real soon. And in the industry, there's just this dismissal of these films that are going to come streaming right to your home. And I just felt bad for The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, that has so much to say, that has such a unique point of view. that is a gorgeous movie with amazing performances, and it's Chiwetel's directorial debut, and I think he kills it.
Yeah.
He also acts in the film, and he plays Kamkwamba's father, and he's really good in the movie. And I just want more people talking about this movie, but because it's coming on Netflix, no one was talking about it. It's
Yeah, I
frustrating.
saw the trailer for it because that came out, and it definitely has that human drama aspect to it, and it looks extremely compelling when I saw the trailer for it. So I remember I saw when you said that you saw it.
I think Darren, Brian, you're going to really enjoy the movie.
It's also like a super beautiful presentation of Africa, because even though it is a place of extreme poverty, there's such a rich culture there, and it shows like peace between religions that feels like impossible in America now.
Right.
That's
Because
another beautiful aspect.
In Mawali, not only is there the tribal religion, there's members who believe in the Muslim faith, and then there's Christianity, and there doesn't seem to be any division amongst
or
those
conflict,
religions.
because they're kind of joined together under the umbrella of the tribal religion and tribal culture.
Yeah, so I found that fascinating. It's something that you don't think about. And during the Q&A, there were some people there from Nigeria who thanked the filmmakers for, showing Africa positive film. So often especially in Hollywood movies, Africa is just seen for its poverty and, the struggle. And while that is certainly necessary to this story and part of this element, it's like Lisa was saying, it's people getting together, working out, and figuring out how to triumph in this adversity, and just a celebration of the people.
Yeah.
All right.
That's cool.
Not poverty porn. That's the phrase I was looking for. It's
You're not
poverty
looking
porn.
at like spindly legs and bloated bellies and stuff like that.
Yeah, like
You're looking at
strong
families.
family.
Yeah.
All right.
March 1st?
March 1st, Netflix.
Friday. Okay.
All right. Wife Dork.
So should I talk about the other Netflix movie, or should I stick with the order I'm going in?
Do whatever you want to talk
This
about.
one is a Netflix movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
March 22nd.
Okay, so this was my second favorite film of the fest. This is part of the premieres. So some of the films are part of the competition, and some of them are just presentations, like
Boy Who Harnessed the Wind.
and like this film, Paddleton. This is Mark and Jay Duplass have kind of separated for a while. They're taking a break from doing projects together because they have been intensely together in a way. So this was a collaboration of Mark Duplass and writer-director Alex Lehman. And it stars Mark Duplass and Ray Romano as two very best friends. They met each other because they're neighbors, and they find out that they both love kung fu movies, and all they want to do is sit around and eat frozen pizzas and talk about bullshit all day.
What's wrong with that?
And they like to play this game that's called Paddleton, where it's kind of like wall ball. Did you ever play wall ball in elementary school? Except for they use a tennis ball and two tennis rackets. And the aim of the game is that the tennis ball lands in a barrel. So when you're playing Paddleton, it's not, there isn't a winner. It's like two people versus the wall. And they're kind of living this life where they're hanging out every evening. But then Mark Duplass, his character is named Michael. Michael gets diagnosed with terminal stomach cancer, and he has to break it to his friend, but he doesn't want anything between them to change. Yeah. And Ray Romano's character is kind of a nervous guy. There's a reason why he doesn't have any more friends. He's very particular. He's very stuck in his ways and neurotic. But when he finds out, his friend is going through this, he tries to just go through the motions, but he can't. And he just wants to be able to be there for his friend. But it's truly it's an extremely emotional movie. This is so Brad cried through The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. I wept through Paddleton. To me, it's a movie about how there are many different types of true love. And even though they didn't have a sexual relationship, they didn't have a romantic relationship, their love was so true in a way that just kind of completed each other. It's a very boundless type of love. And I found this, like, for me as a mental exercise, I saw this theme through a lot of the films. I also saw this in a documentary about Anton Yelchin called Love Antosha. Yeah. He had a true love relationship with his mother, where their love was boundaryless. And I just really love the fact that you don't get to see that a lot in movies. Generally, the aim of the game is get the girl, settle down. You know, they initially didn't seem like they were going to be together, but now they are. Oh, they went through traumatic, you know, the aim of the game is find romantic love. And these two people didn't need or want romantic love. They had everything they wanted from life from each other. And they were settled down in a way that was very peaceful. So I thought that this was a beautiful movie and a must watch. And it comes out on Netflix on what?
March 22nd.
March 22nd.
February 22nd.
February 22nd.
February 22nd.
It's right around the
that's
corner.
even better.
Yeah.
It's a great movie.
You know, like the Duplass movies, it's all done in improv.
Yeah.
So they have an outline, but then they improv the entire movie.
Yeah.
Shit.
And we actually have coming out on my chat cast chats with Alex Lehman, the director, with Mark Duplass and Ray Romano, which we did over the phone.
We'll be putting that episode out around the 22nd to coincide with the Netflix release.
And they talk a lot about that process. And obviously Ray Romano is a funny dude, so he's great at coming up with the little joke lines. Alex Lehman talks about like how it's just like, you know, like we could try to sit around and think of a joke for Ray Romano's character to say, but it's not gonna be as good as what Ray Romano comes up with. Yeah. But I think Ray Romano also takes such a deep dive in the Andy character, and I think he comes up, like what he produces is very genuine. That's what the heart of the movie is how genuine these two characters are.
And the final selling point for Darren and Brian is this kung fu element. Alex Lehman recreates a kung fu movie for this film. So there's a film within the film. It's called Death Punch.
Yeah.
It is based off of Kill Bill and the five finger Death Punch. So, like, I think you just need to watch it to see how that kung fu film plays for these
Seriously,
two characters.
like, it gets me majorly choked up.
Yeah. There's
right,
an
I'm sold.
awesome moment.
I'm sold.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a two dweebs in love story, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
It's really good.
What do you got, B?
One of the most talked about films of the festival was the Scott Burns written and directed movie The Report, starring Adam Driver. So this is the story about the torture report, right? The report that was ordered by Senator Dianne Feinstein, played by Annette Bening. She orders Adam Driver to look into allegations that the Bush administration committed atrocity by torturing prisoners. And yeah, it's a rough watch. You know, there are scenes of waterboarding and, the stuff that we all know about now.
The loud music and sexual humiliation.
All the Gitmo stuff. But the majority of the movie is a investigation piece.
Procedural.
Yeah, procedural. And Adam Driver is phenomenal in the movie as Daniel Jones. At times you feel like you're watching it and it's like, oh, this is All the President's Men, but then, it goes into the torture report itself and you see flashbacks, and then at other times it falls into the politics side of things with Dianne Feinstein. It's not necessarily like a a right wing versus a left wing. Obviously a lot of heat is put against the Bush administration, but Obama administration takes some heat as well for how they ignored the situation, didn't want to necessarily pursue these revelations that they occurred. And if you've been following that report at all, you know that torture did not yield any actual results, that it was a total waste of time.
And there was a tremendous cover-up, obviously, of that fact. And those cover-ups led to continued acts of torture.
Yeah.
It was like a self-perpetuating machine.
It really makes you question, what are our values? Post 9/11, obviously that was a tragedy and a horrible thing. But do we continue to live by the beliefs that we tell the world, or do we go, well, you know what, whatever it takes?
Yeah.
I think that's an important question that we must ask ourselves as Americans. And I think the report does it really, really well. And it's engaging. It's got great performances. Like I said, Annette Bening, Adam Driver, John Hamm, Ted Levine's in it for a hot second. I love that guy. Tim Blake Nelson has a scene in the film, a couple scenes in the movie. You should. Michael C. Hall, what a douchebag.
Scott Burns. You said Scott Burns, the director. Is this his directorial debut? Because I heard he was a screenwriter.
Yeah,
this may have been his first film.
This is his directorial debut. He wrote some Soderbergh movies, Side Effects, and Contagion.
That's right. Yeah,
The Informant. All interesting movies. But yeah, this is his featured directorial debut. He's done some shorts and some documentary stuff as well.
Okay.
All right. Wife Dork.
Yes. So this is going to be my opportunity to talk about the documentaries, because we saw a ton of really amazing documentaries. The one that won the U.S. prize was called One Child Nation, about China's one-child policy. That was really, it was a tough watch. Made by someone who was born under that policy. And so she's talking to her own family members, looking back at her own culture, and she's being shocked by what she's seen, even though her family has lived through it. Another great one is American Factory. The one I'm going to talk about is a documentary that I feel like people are not really talking about, but really struck me to my emotional core, and that is Bedlam. So this movie is about how the way the mentally ill have been treated in our country. It used to be that we had federally run institutions, and then under Kennedy wanted it to be a more hands-on, more community-centered system. So he moved it to the state, to state-run institutions, but then the states don't want to spend that money, so they try to pass it back to the federal, and then they try to pass it back to the state, and then eventually under Reagan, actually, the football of what do we do with the mentally ill in this country literally gets dropped, and the 350,000 Americans who would otherwise be in institutions where they would get the care, the attention that's required to keep people with schizophrenia, extreme bipolar disorder, manic depression, they just get dumped out into the homes of their families that can't afford to take care of them. And I'm not just saying like poor people can't afford to take care of them. Middle class people cannot afford to take care of them in the way that they really do need. They are on the streets. We see it every day. Our mentally ill are just living out on the streets, or they're being sent to prisons and they're being treated like criminals for outbreaks and acts they're doing and disturbances they're creating while they're having episodes that are a result of their disease. Yeah. So this film was created by Kenneth Paul Rosenberg, who is a really interesting guy because he is a psychiatrist. So he has that perspective. he has that kind of but he has that perspective, that kind of
the professional
shame over what's happened to these mentally ill people.
Because that's one of the interesting aspects that he says in the documentary is that psychiatrists actually don't have an opportunity to help the most troubled individuals.
There's no incentive to because they cannot pay.
Right. Okay. So if you're a psychiatrist and you want to make money, you're actually helping the people who are pretty well off.
You're helping the people like me who just, like have gone on and off antidepressants and now just need like an anxiety pill. I'm a very high functioning mentally ill person. Yes. So he has that kind of professional shame. But then also when he was 14, his sister, who was 21, was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And obviously that took a huge toll on their family. And he has a lot of familial shame over what ended up happening to his sister. And then also he is a filmmaker. He's done several films, documentary films, all about bringing education to our mentally ill in the United States. And so the way this is put together, he tells the story of his sister and his family. He also interviews a lot of people who are part of the mental health system. And all of these people are super disgusted. They want to help people. And
exhausted.
And exhausted. Because what ends up happening is all of these uninsured mentally ill people are bouncing in and out of the psyche where there is no way to there are so many laws in place where they can't non-consensually keep them, but some of these people, that's what they need to be safe, and some people are in no condition to give that kind of consent because they're mentally ill. But then it also follows the story of a handful of people where we meet them in the LAUSC. That, like, Los Angeles County is kind of a hotbed for this issue because it was the first city to deinstitutionalize, and they deinstitutionalized so fast that they were literally just taking patients and putting them out on the streets and shuttering the doors.
And still in their gowns.
They're still in their gowns. They have no ID on them, and they're just shuffling down the street. There is news footage of mentally ill citizens walking down the street in hospital gowns. It's horrible. But so now, because of that, and because like the homeless population in Los Angeles County has exploded. And we see it because we see it when we're in San Diego. Because for San Diego Comic-Con, all of the homeless people kind of get shoved off to the side, and they're all living on like one street in tents, and it's horrible. But so it follows a handful of people. One's a girl with a single dad. One is a homeless guy who's bouncing in and out of prison. One is an African-American guy who lives with his sister. And
the sister's actually Patrice.
I think that this is a spoiler.
It's not a spoiler.
Okay,
it's in all of the press for it.
Okay, yeah, you go ahead then. I think it's a spoiler because it was a surprise to me.
Okay. I'm looking at a review right now. It opens the paragraph with that.
Well, my review doesn't open the paragraph with that.
All right. I think it's interesting though.
But there's a deep connection to Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. Okay.
But he's going between living with his mom and living with his sister and going to prison. And it shows a little bit, so it starts with them showing them at the LAUSC, and then it checks back in with them after a year, after 3 years, and you can get to see how these people live their lives, going on and off medications, going in and out of prison, trying to find housing and things like that. And this documentary works on every level because it works on a personal level because of Kenneth Paul Rosenberg's family story. It works on a political level because you get to see how the deprioritization of this intersectional problem, like it's not like just black people are mentally ill, or just white people, or just gay people. Like everybody knows somebody who is mentally ill. This truly intersectional piece of society that has just been completely marginalized and deprioritized to the point where they can't take care of themselves, and nobody, not even their own families, want to or are capable of taking care of them. And then it also works on that level of, well, you get to meet all of these different people who are just human beings trying to deal with a disease. So I think this is an extraordinarily made documentary.
It's not a miserable experience either. I mean, there's harsh realities to it, but in exploring these familial stories and personal stories, it's not like it's hopeful.
It's like so many other things that are going on in our country right now. It demands activism,
attention. Yeah.
It demands activism, and so it shows a couple of outlets of places, but
it's a rallying call.
It's a rallying call.
And I guess that's where the hope is like it's saying like, hey, look at this, we can do something about this. Let's do something. Whether we choose to accept it or not.
So because this happens around the Reagan era, does it kind of talk about like veterans coming back from like Vietnam or dealing with?
Not too much. They're mostly dealing with a lot of the people in the documentary. There's a bipolar person. Merle, the sister, is schizophrenic.
Yeah. It doesn't deal with PTSD or anything like
nothing like that. Okay. But I mean, that's clearly also a part of it. Like these people, because these are people who need to be you send somebody into a homeless person goes to the LAUSC to get stabilization. They have to consent to being sedated. They have to consent to being kept. And then when they're finally stabilized, they're given a prescription to take medications on a regular schedule where they're living on the street. There is no such thing as a regular schedule when you're living on the street. So they're just sending them back out. So it's referred to in the film by one of the doctors as it's just a merry-go-round. You just send them out the door so they can go off their medications and either end up in prison or walk back in the next time they have an episode, or, commit suicide or commit crime. Like, it's just awful. Yeah. It's just awful. And I think that this film does a really great job advocating for activism. And I like the fact that it comes from a very academic place, but it also comes from a very personal place.
And HBO Films has picked it up, and you'll be able to watch it on HBO.
Yeah. And Kenneth Paul Rosenberg already has a relationship with HBO, so.
All right. B.
So since Lisa picked a documentary, I'll pick a documentary as well. One that I can't talk too much about because it's so insane, and where it goes is so shocking and surprising. To talk beyond its plot description would be a tremendous spoiler. The doc is called Cold Case Hammarskjöld.
Yes.
It's from Danish director Mads Brugger. Okay, so I knew nothing about the story about the UN Secretary General Dag Hammarskjöld. He died in a plane crash in Ndola, Africa. Mm-hmm. And there's a mystery surrounding that plane crash of whether there was nefarious means that brought it down.
A conspiracy.
And Mads Brugger wants to investigate that case. It happened a long time ago. It happened at the end of the 60s. It's a cold case. Mm. The way this documentary begins is it explains that to you. And the director inserts himself into the documentary as a character. He's playing himself, but he's sitting in a hotel room, and he has a secretary, and he's telling this secretary, I'm going to tell you a story, and I want you to type up the story.
It's like he's a caricature of a filmmaker in his own film.
And then there's another hotel room that both hotel rooms tie into the story. and there's another secretary, and he's telling the story to this secretary. So there's 2 secretaries that he's telling this story to. And he's dressed all in white. And he says at the beginning of the movie, I'm dressed all in white because the villain of this story always wore white. And you're like, what the hell is this? This is not like Bedlam, where the director inserts himself in the story because he has a personal stake. There is like this theatricality to this documentary. And it takes a while for you to adjust to it. And the entire movie, you're questioning the choice to do this. I understand that you want to explore the mystery of who killed Dag Hammarskjöld, but is this the way to do it? And all I'll say is, there's a point when he pulls the curtain back on that, and you go, oh shit! Mic drop! Oh, wow. Brilliant! This is an amazing story. And it goes way beyond the mystery of who killed Dag Hammarskjöld, and it digs into a horror that is just not unbelievable, because we know about it, but darkly the worst kind of human evil is explored in this documentary. I was going to say something, and I can't even say that because it would just ruin where this story goes.
But the mood, like, to say the least, is uneven. Like, there is, like, the way he enters the story is not how you feel at the end of the story.
Yeah, you're like, well, this is awkwardly comedic.
Some people found that aspect off-putting, but this was a beloved film, I felt, by most people.
Yeah, it's shown up on a lot of top 10 lists, and I don't think it has distribution yet.
Shit.
And it's one of those things where it's just like this would play at Fantastic Fest, and you'd just be like, what? Oh my god. The lobby would be on fire. Like a lot of conversation coming up.
I would love to see that this year. If it doesn't come out before then.
And
it'll be interesting to see what the crossover was, because we did spy some Fantastic Fest programmers.
Yeah.
At Sundance. Yeah.
Yeah, our buddy James Shapiro was there.
Yeah.
We didn't manage to run into him though.
No, we didn't.
We kept running into what's her name?
Anik.
Yeah, I wanted to go. I wanted to go over to her and fangirl all over her, but then I was like, oh no, she's gonna think I'm a weirdo. So she was wearing a red coat, and I just looked at her.
But yeah, like, I don't know. Highest recommendation for Cold Case Hammarskjöld. It's a long movie. It's 2 hours and 8 minutes. And it tests your patience for a good long time. Like when we were talking about One Cut of the Dead, and, you watch that movie for, 30, 40 minutes, you're going like, why am I watching? What is going on? It's kind of like that. It's not as big of a flip the script as that film, but as they get deeper into this story, you are definitely on the edge of your seat. And like I said, when you understand why he was doing what he was doing, it's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm sold. I want to see it. All right, Wife Dork, what do you got?
Yay! So I've got a wonderful little genre flick for you. Maybe we'll see it at Fantastic Fest. This is totally a Fantastic Fest film, and it is Little Monsters. Oh, though this does have it has a deal now with Hulu and Neon.
Yeah.
So it's going to be in theaters. It's also going to be released on Hulu. Did I say the title? I don't know if I did. Little Monsters. Oh, okay, good.
Lupita Nyong'o?
Yes. It's Lupita Nyong'o and Stephen Peacock. So Stephen Peacock plays... Oh, no, wrong name. I messed this up before on another podcast. Alexander England. Alexander England plays Dave, and he's like a kind of a deadbeat rocker wannabe guy who he's been in the same relationship for 9 years, couldn't make it work. They end up breaking up, and he's stuck sleeping on his sister's couch.
The opening credits is just the entire thing are just a series of screaming matches between him and
how
his
generally
wife, girlfriend
over like the production bumpers and then the opening credits, generally there's music. There's been this trend of there being like other shit going on over that audibly, and this was one of the great uses of that device of just having a couple fight over the entire opening credits in different venues.
Like extreme heightened arguments.
Yeah.
Like movie arguments, but done really, really well.
It's great. And so he ends up sleeping on his sister's couch, and his sister has a 5-year-old son named Felix. And Felix is, you know, kind of a nerdy kid, very sheltered. He's only watched children programming. He loves Teddy McGiggle, who is played by Josh Gad, who is kind of like a Wiggle. He's like a Wiggle, but he has like a frog friend, puppet frog friend. But he doesn't know about cool stuff. And Dave really doesn't have the time of day for his nephew. He's not like a kid's guy. And so he doesn't edit his swearing in front of the child. He just, you know, he plays violent video games in front of the child. He just doesn't give a shit. But then his sister's like, you know what? Like, you're sleeping on my couch. If you're going to be here, you got to lend me a hand. So how about you take Felix and you drop him off at kindergarten for me? And he's like, sure. And then he drops Felix off, and then he sees Felix's teacher, Miss Caroline, and it's Lupita Nyong'o. And now all of a sudden he's like, Mr. Kids. Oh, I love children. And she's like, your dream kindergarten teacher. She's a vision. Yeah. She plays the ukulele, and she likes to play Shake It Off by Taylor Swift. And all the kids think that she's the coolest.
Because she is.
And so when one of the parents drops out from being chaperoned for the school trip to the zoo, of course, Dave is like, hey, I'm free.
Thank you.
How about me? And so he goes on this trip to the zoo. And long story short, there's a zombie outbreak. And that's what the movie is.
Shit.
It is so fun. It's so funny. It's mostly uses practical zombie effects, and it's equally gross but visually comedic.
Yeah. There's one gag, I won't spoil it, but
so
there is
good.
a zombie gag in it where I was just like, oh gosh,
like what is the most hilarious zoo animal that a zombie can get entangled with? I don't know. So it's very slapsticky. The kids end up the kids end up kind of holed off at like a central location. And the entire time, Miss Caroline is trying to be like, it's just a game. It's like tag. You know, just don't let the yucky grown-ups touch you and you win. And it's a beautiful story about the bond between a teacher and her students. And that when you are a teacher and you're in that teacher role, the child's emotional, physical, educational safety is up to you, and you will do anything for those kids. This made me super nostalgic for my 5 years as a classroom teacher. Of course, I came to the conclusion of not worth it. The adoration of a bunch of children, not worth the stress. But like, I think they did this film is directed and written by Abe Forsyth, and I think he really captured what the stakes really are, especially when you're a homeroom teacher and these kids come to you, and it's your job to notice if they're malnourished. It's your job to notice if they're being bullied, if they have a deadly, like I received EpiPen training. I received training for what to do when there is an intruder in the building, both armed and unarmed. Like the stakes when you are a teacher are super high, and it's your job to be the beauty before the ugly world that these kids are going to be turned out to. And I found this movie to be funny, super uplifting. Lupita Nyong'o is of course amazing, and she's killing it on the ukulele. And I really enjoyed her chemistry with Alexander England. I thought Dave, like, he's a truly dynamic character. You know, like, from the plot description, you know, like, he's going to eventually learn to appreciate Felix, you know. But I think it's done in a super dynamic way, like a very natural way. It doesn't feel too corny. Maybe a little corny.
It's a little corny, but like in the best possible way.
Yeah.
And this is like Paddleton. By the end of it, Lisa was in tears.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, but like happy tears.
You when you posted on Facebook our little event for recording, you used a still from that movie. Because I haven't seen the Us trailer.
Oh yeah.
For a second, I was like, "These motherfuckers got to see Us." But then I had to remember that I remember someone mentioning that there was this movie that she was in at Sundance, and it wasn't Us.
It's
so I
a
was
very
like,
different movie than Us, I imagine.
Of course, when I was standing in line, I used this movie as an excuse to talk about Anna and the Apocalypse, and everybody who loved Anna and the Apocalypse loved Little Monsters and vice versa. Yeah. There's a definite crossover in that fandom of uplifting zombie movies.
You did say it has distribution, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's been purchased by Neon and Hulu. Okay. So maybe we'll get to see it at Alamo. I don't know how that relationship is going right now.
It's a great Lost Weekend movie.
Oh, hell yeah.
Andy did say he was looking at maybe some stuff that was at Sundance that we may be seeing.
But
soon.
Neon doesn't have a date for it.
No
release.
date.
No.
Yeah.
That deal was struck literally on the Thursday that Sundance began.
Damn.
Yeah, I figured that would sell.
Congratulations for them.
They did not waste any time.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that movie was getting buzz even before Sundance.
It's so cute.
Brian's
going to love it.
It takes place in Australia, right?
Yeah. It's an Australian movie.
I saw Elisa Malone posted how she felt it reminded her of home.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
All right, what do you got, B?
I'm going with A24.
Yes.
And I'm going with the film that people were calling the Hereditary of this year.
Huh?
Oh.
It's not.
Oh, man.
There wasn't a Hereditary this year, which is why you have to come every year.
But it was pretty darn creepy and certainly disturbing. It is the horror film The Lodge. Directed by Severin Fiala and Veronica Franz. Stars Riley Keough, Richard Armitage, Alicia Silverstone.
Huh? She's still doing
it? She is. And, again, I don't want to talk too much about it. The film opens up and it follows a couple kids, a brother and a sister. They live with their mom, Alicia Silverstone. Mom and dad are on a split. And they're going to have a Thanksgiving dinner with their dad. And, the hope is that mom and dad will get back together. They go to have Thanksgiving. Things don't go according to plan. Something happens. And then we cut to a little more time in the future. It's actually, The Lodge is a Christmas movie.
What?
Oh.
Yeah, it's a Christmas
I haven't
film.
seen this one.
Oh, you? Oh.
Yes. And the kids are spending time with dad and his new girlfriend, played by Riley Keough.
Yeah.
And what you learn is that Riley Keough, in her youth, her father led a death cult. And everybody in that death cult died, and she was the last person. And the dad had some connection as a psychiatrist with, bringing her back to life and not life, but bringing her back to the world, to society, reintegrating her into society. And they struck up a relationship, and now it's, that's the relationship that blocked Alicia Silverstone from bringing the couple back together.
Oh.
And so there's some tension between the kids and Riley Keough. And then there's a huge, massive snowstorm, and everyone's trapped in this cabin around Christmas. And then weird things start happening. And it's really unsettling. And it was I saw this at a public screening, and I'm so glad that I did, because bless this one woman. When the movie started out, I was like, you knew what you were like. You knew you were at least seeing a horror film, right? So when this one thing happens at the beginning of the movie, she screamed like a blood-curdling scream, and she just didn't stop for the rest of the film.
Oh God.
She was losing it, and there were certainly some walkouts. I think maybe you when you're at Sundance, you're like, I'm going to go see a movie, and I got into this movie, so I'm going to watch this, and then, this is not what I expected, so I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good little flick.
Why do you think people are comparing it to Hereditary? Can you see why someone may?
Yes,
draw that?
like how Hereditary. It's a lot about the family in the beginning. There's this tension amongst this familial unit, and then a horror element is introduced, and it's graphic and drastic. It's it's something like that.
Okay,
it's something like that.
Just quality wise, it's not on the same level. Maybe?
Well, I think the short answer is yes.
Okay.
I think the story of Hereditary is superior to what's going on in the lodge. And I'm sorry I even started the conversation off that way of like comparing these two, because they really, they shouldn't. It's unfair to compare them. I just love Hereditary so much. As when someone tells you like, "Oh, it's this year's Hereditary," you're like, "Well, that's bold talk. Don't do that to me." And now I've done it to you, so you're welcome.
Along the vein of somebody losing their shit during a movie, neither of us have this on their list, but we watched Nightingale, Jennifer Kent's follow-up to
the Babadook.
The Babadook. The Nightingale is not the Babadook. It's a period film, but it has some super graphic depictions of violence and rape. And I was sitting next to a guy who just could not handle it, to the point where he was making verbal exclamations through the entire film. Like he could not. He even apologized to me after the movie. He's just like, I've just, and he was a volunteer actually. I've just never seen anything like that. I just couldn't keep it in.
The whole theater was losing their minds during The Nightingale.
It was that movie. The first third is a lot. And if Brad and I hadn't gone through a lot to get into that movie, I certainly would not sign up to see that movie.
You know the Proposition? You seen that, the Guy Pearce film? Yeah. So that's like the G-rated version of The Nightingale.
Yeah, damn.
Nightingale is really rough, and it's set in the same time period as the Proposition. It's on Tasmania, which at the time was called Van Diemen's Island, and it's about a woman who's a convict, or a recently paroled convict, who is basically an indentured servant to this military officer, and it's horrible things are perpetrated towards her and her family.
It's a movie about like dehumanization of women and indigenous peoples.
Yeah, Jennifer Kent refused to call it a period movie. She says it's a movie about today, despite being set in the past. And there's a lot of anger there, and a lot of horrible things going on in the world.
Serious trigger warnings.
Yeah. So I don't know, but that was a crowd that was very audible and uncomfortable.
People were literally like pale and laying down outside after the movie.
That was the world premiere, and there was that woman like in the corner of crying.
It's a lot.
There was like 20 people who walked out of that theater.
Yeah.
So prepare yourself. It's not a horror film like The Babadook, but it is a horror film.
There is horrors. There are horrors.
All right. What do you got, Wife Dork?
It's my turn.
Yep.
Okay, so this was my number one film of the fest. It also won the grand jury prize, and that is Chinoye Chukwu's, I wish I could say her name because I love her so much, Clemency. So Clemency is a story about a female warden named Bernadine Williams, played by Alfre Woodard. Not a true story. I don't know why I included her character name. Not a true story, but played by Alfre Woodard. And she is on her 12th execution. And she takes a lot of pride in her work. She really does her best to respect each of her death row inmates and treat them with dignity. But the job is really taking a toll on her and taking a toll on her marriage.
Wendell Pierce is her husband.
Wendell Pierce, yeah. Okay. And then also you get to see into the life of the inmate, who is Aldous Hodge, played by Aldous Hodge, brilliantly. And the details of his crime are kind of rolled out judiciously throughout the film. But you get to see how, like, when you're on death row, you don't really exactly know when is going to be your last moments. And he's
been on death row for 15 years.
He's been on death row for 15 years. And there is all of this kind of pressure on him and pressure on his lawyer to maintain hope till the very last second. Even like the morning of his of the day that's meant to be the day of his execution. People are saying, the governor could call at any second, so don't you lose hope. And it's just exhausting to him, and you just see this kind of wave of hope and then despair and then hope rolled around this group of people until it's just depressing and toxic and just also very futile.
Well, we've seen this story told several times before, but I can't remember a time in which the point of view was from the person in charge of making sure that it gets done, right? The not necessarily the executioner, but the person whose business is making sure that the job happens on this time, that he is the procedure, as they call it. The procedure occurs on this time, and we get rid of him.
And can you remember what state this takes place in?
I can't.
I wish I
could.
a
death row state.
Yeah. But
Ohio?
I think
because she did a lot of her research. The director did a lot of her research in Ohio.
That must be true because in Ohio or whatever state this movie takes place in,
she did the research in Ohio.
Okay, most of the wardens are African American women for some reason, and I just found that to be a very interesting and weird statistic. Just in that, I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but I don't really know what to do with that information. But I found the movie very powerful and very moving. It's a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. I'm devastated that the United States is still executing its citizens, no matter what they've done. It's never, to me, killing somebody else is never the right thing to do, whether it's legal or not, whatever. But it played on my heartstrings that way. So maybe I'm the target audience for this film. But I also thought it was very sympathetic to all sides. It's not like Alfre Woodard's character was also against the death penalty and this was being done against her will.
It's a truly empathetic film.
Yeah.
And it's also a gorgeous movie. The cinematography on it's
you
great.
Think that you've seen every way a prison can be shot? You have not. There are moments that are colorful and beautiful. There are moments that are cold and devastating.
And there are some long takes in the movie that are just truly impressive. How do I say this? I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, I agree with Lisa. I don't think it's necessarily a political movie. It's a human movie, and it just has you look at that story and that idea and what we do in this country. Yeah. It is interesting to me that Lisa and I talked to a few folks who did not like the film. One of them was from Germany, and the movie had no effect on him. And then we talked to a reporter with Danish Film Magazine, and he was like, I just don't get it. Yeah, of course the death penalty is barbaric. Americans are a bunch of savages. What's the point of this movie?
Right.
And I thought that was interesting to have these two forward perspectives who do not understand at all
how we could still be having the death penalty in the United States.
So that the film just
doesn't speak to them.
Doesn't speak to them at all, which is really
crazy.
Interesting.
So after I saw the movie, I had already loved the movie. And then Chinoye spoke to us. And she spoke to us about her journey in making this film. And she was the writer as well as the director. And the film was just so rich. The characters were just so layered. And Chinoye has been working she's interviewed wardens, she's interviewed death row inmates, she's interviewed people who work in other, death row lawyers, other people who have worked in that capacity. But then she also goes to female prisons and she teaches a filmmaking class to female inmates. And so
and she's been doing this for years.
So this film is an extension of something she's already so knowledgeable about and passionate about. And I really think that adds to the richness of the film and why, in comparison to other Sundance, who also independent films and lower budget films, this has a level of sophistication that I didn't see matched in any other film. And I do think that it comes down to her research and her passion.
I'll be curious when this film is released if it gets any traction. It's one of those movies where, depending on the marketing of it, it could land and we could see an Oscar nomination for Alfre Woodard or cinematography for the director, or it could just come out and be too real for somebody to put their money down and make no impact whatsoever. I have a lot of hope for Clemency. This was my second favorite film of the festival.
All right. Your last one, B?
Yeah, my last one's my favorite film of the festival, and that's The Last Black Man in San Francisco, directed by Joe Talbot. Let's see. A24 is putting this one out. So it's based on the life of Jimmy Fails, who plays himself in the movie. He, grew up in San Francisco. His family had this gorgeous Victorian home, and finances being what they were, they lost the home. And the plot is about Jimmy, and he's obsessed with this house that his grandfather built. It's this gorgeous Victorian home, and it represents, it represents home. Like that's a stupid thing to say, but it
feels right. It represents something that feels rightfully his.
Yeah, and he has nothing else. So when they lost this house, he keeps being drawn back to it. So, a white family has moved into it, and they don't care for it the way he would like them to care for it. So when they're not looking, he comes on over, he paints the windowsills, he plants flowers in their garden. He does whatever he wants to make sure that this house is still respectful to his grandfather's dream. And he's got his buddy Montgomery, played by Jonathan Majors. And they have a great chemistry together. They're skate buddies. The film opens up with this beautiful shot of a young girl staring up into the sky. She's just lost her front teeth, and so she's like, tonguing her gums. And you're like, what is she looking up? What is she looking up at? And it cuts to a guy in a hazmat suit staring down at her, and you're like, oh, what the heck is this? And then the camera pans back, and you see all these men in the Bay of San Francisco in hazmat suits, and all the ocean has been poisoned by all the industry that we have pushed into the ocean and the waters, and the fish are mutating. They've got 3 eyes, and there's a preacher on a box, and he's screaming his disgust at what is happening to his neighborhood, or what used to be his neighborhood, and everyone is being pushed out, and by white society. Gentrification has taken a hold, and the African Americans of the community are living on the fringes of San Francisco. And the house becomes vacant, and he's like, that's my house, I'm going to claim that house. And that's the story. 15 minutes into this movie, maybe even 10 minutes into this movie, actually probably 5 minutes after that,
the opening is beautiful. It's followed by them getting on Jimmy Fails' skateboard and skating through the neighborhood and skating into San Francisco. It's visually just so wonderful. And there's all of these beautiful, every extra has like a life and a character of their own that's intriguing. And there's just so much there's a lot of look in this movie.
Yeah. And it has like this operatic score. It's just... that opening, after that opening scene, I turned to Lisa. I was like, "Oh my god, this is the best movie of the festival." And it doesn't necessarily land the ending. The ending's fine, but the momentum of like the beauty and the performance and the narrative doesn't last all the way to the final moments. At least that's how I felt at the time. I'm curious to watch this movie again, and the way the story of the house gets wrapped up. I wasn't totally satisfied by the conclusion of the film. But the whole ride and the performances by Jonathan Majors and Jimmy Fails, I was really hooked into. And then the direction by Joe Talbot, I thought was, like Lisa was saying, is gorgeous and really visually compelling. And and also heartfelt and very emotional movie. And I feel like the introduction of a visionary director that could really go places.
Okay.
Danny Glover's also in
Danny
the movie.
Glover's in it. He's great. Mike Epps is in it. He's great. Those background characters that Lisa was talking about. We recently hosted Ghost World at the Alamo Winchester. There's all those weirdo background characters, and you're like, well, what the hell's their story?
The pregnant woman with the beer. What's her story?
What's her story? This has that similar effect, so much so that at the end, when something is introduced, I guarantee that Ghost World was an influence on this movie.
Nice. Huh.
So I don't know. Highly recommend it. Another tough one to talk
You said
about.
that's got picked up by A24.
Yeah, A24 is going to put it out.
Cool.
I'll be again like Clemency. I'll be curious to see how this one lands. Right. There's been some conversation around it because the director's white, telling a black man's story, but I mean, they were childhood friends.
Joe Talbot and Jimmy Fails.
This is Jimmy Fails' story above all else.
Joe Talbot is also a fourth generation San Franciscan.
Yeah. I don't think there's a controversy there.
Okay.
The way that some people think there is, but I don't know. I'm excited to watch this again.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Well, what do you all have to say in closing regarding Sundance?
We had some major whiffs of the festival, some of which we've already mentioned. We did not get to see, these are some of the award winners. Oh, I slept through The Souvenir. Brad saw it.
I liked The Souvenir. I thought it was good. Joanna Hogg. There's a sequel coming out. Rob Pattinson's going to be in the sequel.
Yeah, we didn't get to see Honeyland. I think that won
the documentary world prize.
Yeah, we didn't get to see that. Brittany runs a marathon. We missed that one.
I heard a lot about that one.
So The Farewell, starring
one too.
Awkwafina. Yeah. It was one of my most anticipated, and we whiffed on it. Like, we missed out on two.
Did you guys have an opportunity? Because I heard that one. The Farewell, everybody was raving about.
We had an opportunity, but then traffic screwed us.
Yeah.
We stayed at Heber City to keep costs of living down, which means we had to drive 30 minutes in every day. And there was rush hour. Just
Monday morning rush hour.
Yeah. Oh, Brad, the Shia LaBeouf movie.
Honey Boy, yeah.
Is that good?
It's a really compelling movie.
Really?
Like, my go-to little thing that I say about it is it feels like the center chapter of a really good book. Like, it's super packed. It's very in medias res. You kind of get the background of he's a huge star, but he's got some serious
daddy issues,
substance abuse issues. So he ends up in rehab, and then while in rehab, he's kind of dredging up these stories of growing up as a child star with an abusive father. It's Shia LaBeouf's. Apparently, this is a script that Shia LaBeouf actually wrote while in rehab. And so you really do get that intimate feeling. And he plays his own dad. So you get that super...
It feels like therapy. It feels like you're watching somebody's therapy.
Yeah.
Performance-wise, he's good?
Oh, he's amazing.
Great.
Okay, good.
And Lucas Hedges is really good at playing...
The ginger Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, I mean, he has mannerisms, and the way he speaks is very Shia LaBeouf. It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
Yeah, what's the name of the little kid?
I don't know. But the kid who plays
familiar.
young Shia LaBeouf is also really good. And yeah, Shia is great. I think it's an extremely compelling movie, a movie I was skeptical of, but won over by.
But it doesn't have a satisfying beginning, middle, end. It just kind of stops. No, but I like that about the movie.
I feel like there is no end to this story, right?
Not until Shia LaBeouf
dies.
Kicks the bucket.
So I think it's a totally satisfying experience. I really enjoyed
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
Noah Jupe plays young.
Yeah.
And what is he from?
He's a good kid actor.
That's Quiet Place.
Yeah, Quiet Place.
Yes.
And that other movie with Matt Damon.
Things that I think that Darren and Brian need to keep an eye out for. Sweetheart is the new Blumhouse horror film starring Kiersey Clemons. It's good. It's another one where it's I don't want to talk too much about, and the trailers are probably going to ruin this movie for you. Yeah. But she washes up on an island by herself. Her boat's gone down. Oh, well, she actually washes up with a friend. Doesn't last too long. He's not doing too well. And it's like a Castaway story
Yeah.
until it becomes something else. And then it's something else.
That's another movie I slept through.
Damn it.
So I missed the whole part about where it's something else.
Yeah.
I've read about that, and I'm curious. That made me want to see it.
It's
even
really
more.
good. We mentioned briefly Them That Follow, the Walton Goggins Snake
Great.
Handler film.
I need to see it.
Really
Did that get
good.
picked up? Because I need to see that soon.
I feel like it did, but I can't remember by who.
Okay.
Big Time Adolescence is the new Pete Davidson comedy.
Yeah.
I don't like Pete Davidson generally.
Right.
Movie's great, hilarious.
He's
in it?
so
'Cause
charismatic.
That's a Judd Apatow produced.
Yeah,
by
yeah.
him.
Yeah, he really sells the lovable scumbag.
I really enjoyed that.
You guys didn't see Late Night.
No,
we
that was
missed
a
that.
whiff.
You missed that one.
Yeah,
What
that
is
was
it?
Amazon picked it up. It's Emma Thompson,
Yeah.
Mindy Kaling, late night talk show host movie. Supposed to be really good.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about it here, but we're going to have an interview with the director, Alexandra O. Felipe. Memory, The Origins of Alien. That's great. Lisa mentioned Love and Tasha, the Anton Yelchin documentary.
Yeah.
What's amazing about that documentary is the amount of access we have to his home movies. Because he was a performance kid, you have stuff of his when he was like a toddler
Yeah.
all the way through his films.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
It's an inspirational movie, and I just didn't realize how many movies Anton Yelchin had made. I need to go back and watch some of those films.
We were talking about maybe doing a watch of all of his films in reverse order.
The documentary Apollo 11 about the Apollo 11 space flight.
We might be seeing that one.
Well, that one's
coming up.
That's Neon. Yeah, we'll probably see that soon. I highly recommend that. The Ted Bundy film, I thought Zac Efron was great. It's not exploitative. It's a really interesting film about the mask of Ted Bundy, not necessarily his crimes.
And about the woman who fell for that mask.
Yeah. And I would also recommend the documentary Knock Down the House.
So good.
Yeah, about the
On
oh my gosh.
Alexandra Cortez.
Yeah, what's her middle name? Alexandra oh my god, this
I follow her on
I
Twitter.
sound like an ignorant. AOC. About her and the three other women who ran that race, and it's just like an amazing, uplifting documentary.
Yeah.
You know, that still also shows it exposes a lot of horrible political monsters. And the
Them That Follow
system.
was acquired by Sony Pictures Worldwide.
What's that about?
Them That Follow, that's the one about the snake handling Walton
All right,
Goggins.
because I couldn't say it. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I butchered that pronunciation too. She's rad
Yeah.
anyway. So yeah, those are like the big ones. We missed Loose, the Tim Roth Naomi Watts movie. That's supposed to be really, really good as well. I wish we had caught that. But yeah, that was our Sundance.
It was awesome.
It was awesome. Now I want to go every year like we do with Fantastic Fest and Comic Con, but I
Yay.
don't know how we could do that financially.
Oh, we'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Yay.
Honestly, because of the way Lisa and I did it, food-wise, we brown bagged it with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and some vegetarian sandwiches every now and again. We probably spent the least amount of money of any festival we've attended.
Damn.
Including Fantastic Fest and Comic-Con.
Because we're not buying food everywhere.
Yeah, and we went to, like we go to Comic-Con, we go to Target, we do the Target run. Well, we went to Walmart and we bought a crap ton of food.
Small town Walmart shit is practically free.
Like, we spent $40 and that took us through almost the entire festival.
God damn.
I mean, like, astounding. Like, we were buying avocados and shit.
Yeah, where we would need to readjust is location. Staying at Heber City meant we had to rent a car. Renting a car means something, and then that also meant parking.
Yeah.
Parking was $40 a day.
Damn.
Yeah.
But maybe not for us.
Oh. Okay. All right. Well,
I have an off-air story.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's hurry and wrap this up because I got to hear that shit. Well, thank you for sharing your great experience with us and the listeners. I've been dying to hear about all the movies that you guys watched, and I would like to go. I just have
We
to.
would love to have you with us.
I'm telling you, we Airbnb it.
Yeah.
We can afford a place. We'd have to get it, not like a month before, like Lisa and I did it this time.
Yeah.
I'm confident that all four of us could get a working pass, and then we get an Airbnb.
I need my own bathroom, though, and bedroom.
Yeah, that's fine as long as we do that. I think we can make it work.
Yeah.
And then we go to that Walmart and we buy our $40 worth of food.
Yeah.
That will last us for days
All
and
I
days
eat
and
is tuna
days.
and crackers anyway.
Yeah.
So shit, I'd be spending $15. You can follow the podcast at ItModcast on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd. It's not on Untapped. We're not on Letterboxd either. That's Brad stuff. Brian is at Brian William Young on what? Facebook. He's also at the Turtle Dork on Twitter, at the Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, and Wife Dork is at Sidewalk Siren on Twitter and Instagram. She's also at Bake Dork on Twitter and Instagram.
And you can follow my reviews and various articles on aftermoviediner.com.
Yes.
And
Brad Gullickson is at Mouth Dork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, and Untapped. I'm Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, on all social medias.
And don't forget to keep following the chat cast, because we're going to start rolling out. We did, he's already mentioned the Alexander O. Felipe interview. We have the Paddleton interviews coming up. We also interviewed Irene Brodsky, who did another documentary that we loved called Moonlight Sonata, Deafness in 3 Movements.
we'll have Chiwetel Ejiofor Red Carpet episode. And we're going to have Dan Gilroy, the director of Velvet Buzzsaw. We're going to have Renee Russo. We're going to have Billy Morganson.
Just
Tom
saying,
Sturridge.
keep your ears on this space.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Lots of good interviews.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. And until next time.